Oh, really? For adopting in a house. There's nothing in it. Oh, no. Probably better is when you're in what? Where they go to the bathroom? In a pot. Then they have a chamber pot.
If you want to have a look, actually, there's just an image of the back wall of great figures that I'll explain that now.
This is the one that married that guy.
You can make your way over here, and I'll talk if you want to have a look at it.
This is her sister was in prison. Oh, right? No.
Sorry?
No, that's the one.
Yes, this is the one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll explain.
Oh, okay.
No. Right, so this is the east wing. The old east wing would have been built just like the west wing that we walked through. But it was knocked down and this was built on top of it. This is opened in 1862. It was completely different to the other area of the jail. The first thing you probably noticed when you walked in here was the light. There's a huge amount of light coming in here. It was all part of the idea that the light had healing properties and could help the prisoners. In the cells too, there were windows, but they're high up to focus the attention of the prisoner upwards, up to the light and up to God. This area is built in what's called the panopticon style. Panopticon is a Greek word and it means the all-seeing eye. The idea is you should be able to stand at any point in here and see nearly every single cell. So it made the supervision of the prisoners even easier. As well as that, the acoustics are very good. So if someone was to make a sound anywhere in this area of the jail, the sound would travel very quickly. And the guards, if they were down here, would be able to hear what was going on upstairs. If they needed to get upstairs, they used this big staircase in the middle. That was only ever used by prison guards. Prisoners were never allowed onto that. They used the spiral staircase down at the other end. The spiral staircase, very steep, They have to walk up it and down it slowly and carefully. So there was no chance of the prisoners causing any problems when they were out of their cells if they were going down that. Down below, there was a series of laundries and kitchens. The women would work in the laundries if they were doing hard labour. It would get very, very warm down there during the day. So you'll have noticed the manhole covers dotted around the place. They were lifted up to let all the heat from below rise up here to heat this area, and also then to let lots of this lovely light down to the people who were working below there. This area in general was much nicer, much more hygienic, because down here under these arches there was an area for cleaning yourself, which there wasn't in the old part of the jail. And the getting fed in here was quite quick as well. You can see just here the two grey poles. That was a pulley system. The food was put on a tray downstairs and was brought up to each of the levels. It was said they could feed everybody in this area of the jail in between 15 and 20 minutes.
Wow.
It was very, very efficient. This really was a much nicer area of the jail and really improved the general quality of life in Kilmainham. There was many political prisoners kept in this part of the jail as well, though, down through the years. Now, after the Easter Rising, I've mentioned that sympathies changed and there were more people willing to look at using violence to get independence for Ireland. So there was a war of independence which started in 1919. There was a peace treaty signed between the British and the Irish at the end of that war in 1922. And what happened then was that Ireland was granted a limited independence. It was called a free state. 26 counties in Ireland were to be independent of Britain, to have their own parliament. 6 counties in the north would remain part of Great Britain. Now, this treaty divided people in Ireland. The majority agreed with it, agreed with the free state, because they wanted the war to stop. But there was still a huge fraction that wanted to continue fighting for a full republic. And this division took its form in the Civil War. So after all these years of fighting against a common enemy, the Irish were now fighting with one another. And this jail was opened up then during the Civil War, and for the first time there were Irish soldiers acting as the prison guards, holding Irish prisoners. And one of the prisoners was Grace Gifford, Joseph Plunkett's wife. A lot of women who were maybe wives, mothers, sisters of the men who died in 1916 were against the treaty, because they felt that that didn't go far enough to grant the independence that their husbands, brothers, sons had fought for in 1916. Grace was one of them. And you'll notice in the back wall is just an image of the Virgin Mary, and that was painted by her when she was in here. As well, you may have noticed above the doorways that there's inscriptions of different place names. That's original graffiti from during that Civil War period. There's a lot of graffiti around here that's not from all the way back then, but that's just above the doors. That is all original from during the Civil War. Up on the first floor, just in front of us here, is the cell of Eamon de Valera, probably one of the most famous prisoners to come here to the jail. And he was here twice. The first time in 1916, he was kept up there. He was one of the leaders of the Rising. He managed to avoid being executed. There's a couple of theories as to why that was. One of them is that he was an American citizen, and this was 1916, 2 years into World War I, and it looked like the Americans were going to come in and help Britain in the fight. It was felt that if they killed an American citizen, that maybe the Americans wouldn't join as a war effort. So that's one of the reasons why it's thought that he would have avoided execution. Eamon de Valera himself and many others had different reasonings. They thought that he was going to be next. 16 men were actually executed. There was a long list of people who were meant to be executed, but the executions were stopped after James Conley. Eamon de Valera said that he was next on the list, and many agreed with that. We don't know exactly why he managed to avoid execution, but what we do know is that he left here, fought in the War of Independence, and then was sent back in here during the Civil War. He was kept in the West Wing then, away from other people, because he was seen as very important and very influential at the time. He's said to have been the last prisoner to leave here in 1924, and that's when the jail closed down for good. It was let lie in ruin, not least because it was a symbol of the Civil War, as the divisions that were in Ireland. But it was reopened then in 1960. A group of volunteers came back to restore the jail. And in 1966, they opened it and made it an attraction for people to come and see and learn about the history of the country. And in 1966, it was officially opened by Eamon de Valera, this time in his capacity as the President of Ireland. From the time the jail closed in 1924 to the time it reopened in 1966, he'd become the Taoiseach, which is our Prime Minister, and he later went on to become the President. So he got a lucky escape on Easter week in 1916, but then had a very, very influential political career afterwards. Now, in this area, this might have seemed a bit familiar to some people. Has anyone seen it in any films? Yeah? Anyone? Yeah. In the Name of the Father with Daniel Day-Lewis was made in here. Also, the Michael Collins film, that was made here too. Even though Michael Collins himself was never a prisoner here in the jail, they used this area for the film. And the original Italian Job was also made here, with Michael Caine was made here. But if this look of a jail seems familiar, all Victorian prisons were built in this panopticon style. So most dramas that you'll see are probably from jails that look very similar to this. The panopticon is very popular today now in shopping centres. That's probably what you're more familiar with this style. Nowadays the idea is that you should be able to see all the shops. The original idea was to be able to see all the sets. Okay, so we're going to make our way outside. If you're